recorded, so just keep your microphones off. So my name is Katie. I'm the dietitian for the World Trade Center Health Program. And as if you are a current patient, you know that we don't like fad diets, but we're going to go into the pros and cons and other ways to find out the best eating pattern for you. So let's get started. So we're going to be going over what is a diet, overviews of a few different fad diets, how to spot them, the potential negative side effects of them, the dieting cycle, the pros and cons of different popular diets out there, as well as how to create a sustainable eating pattern. So, what is a diet? There is two definitions of a diet. The first is the kinds of food that a person, animal, or a community habitually eats. The second definition is a special course of food to which one restricts oneself, either to lose weight or for medical reasons. So that's the most common one that we think of when we hear diet. And 2A, another basically version of this, is to restrict oneself to small amounts or special kinds of food in order to lose weight. So we're going to be going through these different definitions and how they apply. But the definition of a fad diet, there really is no true blue definition. However, it is sold as the quote best and fastest approach to losing weight. So there's all different methods, but one thing in common is it's a temporary solution. For many people, that is a lifelong problem. So we're trying to basically put a Band-Aid on the issue when it's really a lifelong journey in our eating habits. So, and normally once the diet is stopped, the weight that was lost is usually regained very quickly. And we'll go over why that is. And they really don't focus on lifestyle modifications. They don't think about behaviors or your relationship with food, emotional eating, meal timing, anything of that nature. And it does often involve strict food rules and possibly restriction of different food groups. So how do I spot one? If I'm reading something, I think, oh, this sounds great. How do I know if it's a fad diet and I'm falling for the trap? They promise a quick fix. So, Dr. Fat Loss, 40 pounds, 40 days. That's an example. Recommendations are made to help sell a book or product. So thinking like if they have a shake that goes along, or they want you to buy their $200 meal replacement bars or vitamins, it's likely a fad diet. Recommendations are based on studies without any peer review or have no research to support them at all. They typically recommend severe calorie restriction. If a diet is saying, you aren't allowed to exercise, if you're following this, it's likely too low in calories. Testimonials, sometimes you will see like, on the cover of like women's magazine, how I did it, this was the best thing for me. They're really trying to sell it. It's usually a fad diet. And then elimination of one or more of the 5 major food groups. So if a diet is saying, oh, you can't have dairy, or you can't have gluten, or you can't have vegetables or meat, it's likely a true blue diet. So these are just some examples of things to look out for. But we do all fall into these traps because it sounds amazing, right? 40 pounds in 40 days, or lose weight fast without dieting or exercise. Amazing, right? But often it is too good to be true, or it's only a short-term satisfaction. So why are they harmful? They are too restrictive. So when we remove things from our diet, our body will compensate in other ways. An example is that the body does rely on carbohydrates and fat for metabolic functions, and most bodies will fight you until you can no longer resist. And then what happens, we sometimes will binge, or we'll go back to square one and feel like a failure, where it wasn't you that failed, it was the diet that failed. So it can be a bit cumbersome in terms of mental health as well. Trigger warning, certain diets can lead to binge eating patterns, or if you do have a history of disordered eating, fad diets with very strict food rules can be very triggering. They can often lead to less energy, fatigue, again, mental health or lack of self-confidence. We feel good when we ate perfectly, or we ate, feel like we were a bad person because we went off of our plan that day. That is definitely not something that here at the WTC we ever want you to feel. If you've ever participated in a nutrition session, you will hear us say, there are no good or bad foods. It's a spectrum. And we'll go more into that later in this presentation. Again, some fad diets will be missing essential nutrients like dietary fat or carbohydrates. And just because you lose weight, it does not mean it's healthy. I don't know if anyone here has ever had the flu or, God forbid, COVID, or has a loved one who has cancer who's losing weight. Weight loss doesn't always equal healthy. And if you're losing weight too quickly, you can risk losing muscle or protein, omega-3s, fiber, things that are really important for long-term health. So just know that if you're thin does not always mean healthy. And just if you have a little bit of excess weight on your body, it doesn't mean you're overweight either. There is a concept of, health at any size. So we want you to know that. And then also lack of adequate calories can lead to malnutrition, hormone imbalance, constipation, nausea, and a slower metabolism. So I don't know if you guys remember the Biggest Loser show on that was on TV a while ago, but a lot of those participants have gained the weight back and then some because of the strict diet that they were put on and such metabolic stress by exercising for 4 hours every day and only eating a certain amount of calories. So it makes it harder to keep the weight off if we do it in a way that's really restrictive. So eat. This is a dietitian telling you to eat, which is great. I'm just going to briefly go through a few that come to my mind when I hear fad diet, because a lot of my patients come to me either doing these currently or have done them in the past, and it's caused detrimental effects to their health and well-being. So Optavia is one of them. And yeah, I'm saying the name because you will hear a lot of people doing them. And if they can stick with it and they can do it forever, that's great. But basically, it involves not eating. You're drinking a protein shake for breakfast, lunch, and snacks, and you're only allowed one meal per day, which is a lean and green, meaning like just chicken and vegetables. And the pros is that it's definitely a quick way to lose weight, especially if it's a medical necessity. Like you need a hernia repair surgery or a knee replacement, something where you need to lose weight quickly. And you don't have to think about it, right? Some of the pros of these fad diets are I don't have to think about what I'm eating. I just have to grab a bar or I just have to grab a shake. And I do like that Optavia promotes eating every 2 hours because that is helpful for your metabolism, but it doesn't involve eating real food. It's eating bars. Rebound weight gain, extremely common because this program, I think, is only like 1,000 calories a day. You're not allowed to exercise because it's a very low calorie diet. It really doesn't teach you how to eat for life because I don't know anybody that could just eat bars and shakes forever. And oftentimes they don't ever make it to the wean approach where you're supposed to like gradually go back to like eating real food. People never make it that far because they binge out or they rebound weight gain. So just something to think about. And then the cons of Optavia and other like meal replacement companies is that they contain a high amount of processed ingredients, especially soy isolate. And I actually did have a patient that had a negative impact on their testosterone level because of the amount of soy protein isolate that they were consuming. So I'm not talking like soybeans, edamame, tofu. I'm talking like if you look at a protein bar and it says soy lecithin or soy protein isolate, it can have a long-term negative impact. So just, something to think about there, soy isolate. All right, so another one is the NJ diet. It has proprietary information, so we really don't know exactly what it involves, but I do know it involves very low calorie diets, and it apparently uses your DNA to tell you what foods to eat. I do a lot of nutrition research, and I have a master's degree in nutrition, and I've never found any substantial evidence of true blue DNA telling us what to eat. So I don't know how true that is. The pros is definitely quick weight loss. And I did check out their website and they do promote like adequate sleep quality and water and exercise, but you're not allowed to exercise while you're following the NJ diet. So I don't really know how that works. But 40 pounds in 40 days is too much weight to lose in one time. And again, little research to support. The last one that's very common is like Nutrisystem or a Jenny Craig, where your foods are delivered to you. and they're pre-prepared meals and snacks shipped to your door. So the pros is definitely they're convenient for people who dislike cooking, or they only cook for one person, or don't have time or access to a kitchen. However, they and they also have dietitians on staff apparently. I don't know any of them, but they also try to not use high fructose corn syrup or unhealthful oils in their foods. And there is coaching, but I do know for a fact that no nutrition coach at Jenny Craig needs a degree in nutrition or psychology. A girl that I went to college with was a Jenny Craig coach, and I will tell you, I don't know if she was qualified. But the cons are that certain breakfast items are definitely not adequate in protein. It's like a muffin. As you know, we want you having protein at your meals, especially breakfast. Foods are very bland and are frozen, and they really don't show you how to meal prep or shop or make your own choices. What happens when you go on vacation? Are you going to bring your Jenny Craig meals with you? Like, what's the plan there? And the small portions, less than 300-calorie meals may not feel full on just Jenny Craig food alone. So it can be helpful to get started, but it's definitely it's a short-term thing. And I do have to throw my girl Christy Alley under the bus here, because she was like the spokesperson, but she's even said how detrimental it was to her mental and physical health. So no bueno. But this is basically the cycle that I'm talking about. Is we start by restrictive dieting because we want to lose weight. We cut out our favorite foods. We say, oh, in 6 months when I lose the weight, then I can have ice cream, or then I can have my cheeseburger. We start to feel deprived eventually, but we do achieve short-term success. We feel good, we're losing weight, but we're craving, we can't have certain foods. We tell ourselves no. And then what happens? The cravings begin, and we return back to our old eating habits, and everything falls by the wayside, and we're back to square one. So we want to help you prevent this cycle. So diet versus dietary pattern. So dietary pattern, aka your pattern of eating, focuses on that first definition of diet, just what we eat. There are many different eating patterns out there for people, but examples are low glycemic or diabetic friendly, ketogenic diet, a plant-based diet, and a Mediterranean diet. Now, the keto can be definitely a fad diet, but we'll talk about that in a moment. So next is low carb diets work for everyone. That is definitely fiction. Low carb diets don't work for everyone, and we'll talk about why. Ketogenic diets may cause elevated cholesterol levels. That is true. Research does show the high fat intake can impact some people's cholesterol. Fact or fiction, you cannot meet your protein needs on a plant-based diet. That is fiction. You absolutely can. It just takes a little bit of planning. I can't follow the Mediterranean diet if I don't like fish. That's fiction. You can. We'll talk about it. And then tracking your food intake via an app or a food journal is an effective weight loss tool for some. That's definitely fact. It's definitely helpful to track your food, but it doesn't work for everyone. So we'll talk about it. So when you're following a dietary pattern, I always want you to ask yourself 3 questions. Will it be realistic given my current lifestyle and environment? Will it still allow for foods and activities that I enjoy? Will it allow for me to eat this way for the rest of my life? If you answer no to any of the questions above, the eating plan is most likely not worth your time, your money, or your energy. I want you guys to be able to follow something forever and enjoy your life. Life is too short to be worrying about, or stressing about what you're eating. Up front, it can be stressful when you're trying a new program, but eventually I want it to get easier. So low carb eating pattern. This is very common for diabetics and pre-diabetics and people looking to lose large amounts of weight. Basically, the breakdown is 40% of your calories from carbs, and carbs include fruit, vegetables, grains, starches, milk, and yogurt. 25% of your calories from protein, meat, fish, eggs, poultry, beans and nuts, and protein drinks or supplements. And then 35% of your calories from fat, and preferably healthy fat, but liquid plant oils like olive oil, avocado, nuts. And then, of course, there are some unhealthier fats like from animals, egg yolks, animal fat, and high-fat dairy. But again, these can all be included. And when people say low carb or I say low carb, I'm not talking no carb. It's still 40% of your calories, but you want to try and get them from more complex foods, meaning like things that aren't as high sugar. This is an example of the low carb bullseye food guide. If you've been in a session with me, you might have seen this before. But basically, the way the pie is split up, it is mostly going to be fat and protein. And the other, here, actually, let me see if, yeah, you guys can see my cursor. And then milk and yogurt has carb. But of course, we want you doing more skim and plant-based milks. And as you move your way out, the red category is less helpful. So, of course, brown rice, potatoes are much different in the way they affect us than soda or cake and cookies. So, we say live in the yellow and the green. So, if you're interested in working on with us for a low carb diet, we can absolutely do that if we feel like it's best for you. Now, low carb facts and fiction. So, bananas are bad for you. Fiction, for sure. You can have up to 3 servings of fruit a day when following a low carb diet. If I eat carbs after 6 p.m., I'm going to lose weight. Definitely fiction. There's no time to stop eating, but in general, for digestion purposes, we do recommend trying to eat between 2 to 3 hours before bed. And it is best if you can pair a carb with some protein to balance your blood sugar. An example would be a banana with peanut butter. Don't just have the banana by itself. It might spike up your sugar, but if you can pair it, that's good. Higher fiber means lower carb. Facts. So when you're looking at a nutritional label, if you're looking at the total grams of carbs, you can subtract the total amount of fiber to get the net carb. So the higher the fiber, the more, the less carbs our body actually absorbs, because we don't digest fiber. It just passes through us. And then start your day with protein. Definitely a fact. Aim for less than 30 grams of carbs in the morning at breakfast and at least 10 grams of protein. So cereal with milk is not going to cut it. It's going to have way too much carbs. Swap that milk out for some Greek yogurt and cut the cereal portion down, and you've got yourself a balanced low-carb breakfast. So keto. I'm going to run through keto because I don't think many people this applies to, because can you eat keto for life? I don't know. So it is effective, definitely, again, if it's medically necessary or you have diabetes. The breakdown is 5% of calories from carbs. That's way different from a low-carb diet that's only 40%. People think keto and low carb are the same. They're not. Ketogenic diet is 75% of your calories from fat. That is a lot of fat. It basically involves having heavy cream or butter at every meal. Carbs are restricted to the point where our body starts to burn fat for energy, and it's called ketosis. That's how we get the keto diet. And it originated in hospitals where children had epilepsy, and they found that a ketogenic diet was able to stabilize their seizures. So I don't know how we went from using that in hospitals for children with epilepsy to losing weight, but I have seen a lot. I'm sure you guys know of a few people that have done the keto diet and have done well with it, but for how long, we don't know. So you can go fact or fiction. You can go on and off keto and keep the weight off. Definitely fiction. The reintroduction of carbohydrates leads to weight gain. That was lost because a lot of times we lose weight via water. Everyone has the same carbohydrate needs is fiction. The amount of carbs you need will depend on your calorie needs and your physical activity. So notice I didn't say only 5 grams of carbs per day. I said 5% of your calories. So everyone's different. If you're 6'5" and you're exercising every day, it's way different than if you're 5'2" and you're not exercising at all. So your calorie needs and your carbohydrate needs differ based on you, and we can help you determine that. Following a keto diet makes you less hungry. This is actually fact because higher fat foods help us feel more full. So think about if you had like avocado or you had olive oil on your salad, you're going to feel much more full. So there is some help with the keto diet and high fat. And then true or false, keto means I can eat all the bacon, butter, and cheese I want. Definitely fiction because we still need to watch our calorie intake and definitely the saturated fat intake. Many people in our program have a high cholesterol or hypertension or a family history of heart disease. So keto can be problematic if that is your case. Now, plant-based dieting is very different than the keto diet because it focuses on primarily food from plants. So it includes not only fruits, vegetables, but also nuts, seeds, oils, whole grains, legumes, and beans. There is research to support its role in heart health and kidney health. If you have kidney disease, a plant-based diet is definitely something to look into. There aren't any specific macronutrient ranges, meaning that percent carbs, but it is actually technically usually higher in carbs because the food sources, plants are mostly carbs. So beans, example, are you're going to be protein, but they also have carbs. Some people, I don't know if you've seen the Netflix documentary Game Changers, but that got a lot of people to start thinking about being more plant-based. But that it was definitely an extremist documentary, but there are some benefits to eating plant-based. And it's not vegan, it's just mostly plants. So fact or fiction, plant-based means I am vegan. Fiction. It doesn't mean you never eat dairy or meat. It's just that you choose a plant source whenever possible. Plant-based eaters may need additional supplements. This is true. If you omit meat and you don't eat meat or fish, you will need some dietary supplements like omega-3s and B12 because we can't get those just from plants alone. And then a plant-based meat is always healthier than an animal meat. This is fiction. Just because something's plant-based does not mean it's healthy. I know you guys are probably seeing McDonald's and all these places coming out with plant-based alternatives. They can have harmful additive oils, sodium, and processed ingredients than animal products. This is an example. I took the Whopper from Burger King, right? This is the Impossible Whopper. So we can see for fat, they're pretty much identical. This has like 5 grams less. For sodium, this actually has more salt. And just for perspective, if you have hypertension, your sodium for the day should be around 1,500 milligrams. This is almost all the sodium you need in one day. So just a lot of salt. So when we're comparing, just know that it doesn't always mean it's better. They're pretty equivalent in protein. Sugar, this has more. Fiber, it has a little more, but still has more carbs. It's really not any better. But if you have colon cancer and you're trying to watch your red meat intake, I would say the Impossible Whopper is good. But otherwise, just go for what you like. And don't eat too much fast food. I'm going to touch on food journaling now because I think that this is a really effective strategy for some people. Tracking your diet is not a diet per se, like using apps or whatnot, but it can be a tool if you are following an eating plan. Tracking your intake can be done in many forms, such as food journaling. And remember that tracking doesn't have to be used forever, but it is very helpful to really see what you're truly consuming. So we may have you journal if you are a patient of ours, but it might be in different forms. So there is a concept of when tracking does become a diet, and it's called if it fits your macros. So essentially, this is when you are giving yourself a set fat, carb, and protein percent based on your goals, and you're following that to a T. So if you set your MyFitnessPal to 2,000 calories a day, 45% carb, 25% protein, 30% fat, you are technically following a diet. But for some people, they can use that as a tool to try for, but not every day is perfect. So some apps are MyFitnessPal, Lose It, Noom, Chronometer. There are some websites that will help you as well. PrecisionNutrition.com has a meal plan calculator. And then another one is WW, Weight Watchers. It's a point system. So fruits and vegetables and lean proteins are free, but you have to limit other foods like grains and starches, fat, and snacks. So this technically is a diet. Writing down what you eat is not a diet, but tracking it in this way and restricting yourself based on this is technically a diet. But I don't think, in my opinion, it's a fad diet. Everyone's different, but some people find that this is helpful to do, and it doesn't mean they have to do it forever. So it's kind of on the cusp of fad and not, because it teaches you lifelong learning lessons. Pros and cons, again, helps you better understand your nutritional information. You really get an understanding on portion sizing, and it focuses more on just calories. Like I have patients where we'll really look at their fat intake or their sugar intake or sodium. So we can utilize these apps to give us that knowledge. And then the cons is that the portion and nutrition information in these apps are not 100% accurate. We can sometimes feel a little bit like out of control if you aren't tracking. It doesn't take into account your hunger cues. So if you're out of points for the day or you're out of food for the day and you're still hungry, Technically, if you're following this, it says not to eat, but I do feel like you should still eat if you're hungry. Um, it is tedious to track home cooked meals. Like, it's really hard to put like a home cooked chili into MyFitnessPal. So you just have to eyeball it. And then it can increase perfectionism around your diet. So a lot of us are very like black and white, all or nothing. So if you're trying to hit your macros perfectly and you're trying to track and it's not going well or it's not going perfect, you get frustrated. Just try your best and know that it's never going to be 100%. It's just about putting in what you think is the best for you and trying to follow a balanced diet, meaning variety. So tracking facts or fiction. If it's 0 calories or 0 carbs or 0 points, it must be healthy. Fiction. So diet products like diet sodas definitely have other preservatives in it that we must be mindful of. I can use all of my points or macros in one meal and still be effective. Definitely fiction. Our bodies function better when everything's spread out. And this also allows for variety. So you wouldn't want to use all your points in one meal. You want to spread them out. And then tracking or using WW is not for everyone. This is fact. It can be triggering and it can definitely not recommended if you have a history of disordered eating or any relationship with food issues. But it can be a tool. And then again, we know that they're not 100% accurate. So the last thing I'm going to touch upon very quickly is intuitive eating. So you might have heard us talk about this before, but it's basically a self-care framework that integrates your relationship with food into it. It goes through emotional eating, boredom or stress. It basically tries to peel back the years of diet culture and work with you on your fear foods. Like if you're someone that can't keep ice cream in the house, intuitive eating is a framework and a workbook that helps you work through that. And it also focuses on body image and self care. There are 10 principles of intuitive eating, like honoring your hunger, respecting your fullness, using your feeling, like coping with your feelings without food. That's a big one. So if you practice, you do nutritional counseling with us, Amanda and I will take some of these principles and use them during the session because I think intuitive eating is great for everybody. But intuitive eating is basically the opposite of a diet. And if you think that this might be something for you, we can definitely talk more about this. But it is a framework. It's a program. It's a mindset that you work through to help you improve your relationship with food. I kind of talked about this. It's not a weight loss tool. It doesn't recommend weight loss, but eventually you may lose weight if you improve your relationship, but it takes time to understand your habits. And we have a whole section on mindful eating and intuitive eating on our website. I'll send everybody that's here the slides as well so you can click on these links. And last but not least, the Mediterranean diet. Amanda and I usually focus on this, but it's voted #1 best quote unquote diet by the US World News Report 5 years in a row. It focuses on eating plants, fish, and healthy fat, physical activity, eating slowly and with others, and research support its use for helping to prevent heart disease, diabetes, cancer, and Alzheimer's disease. We do a lot of research at the WTC with Med Diet as well. So it is higher in fat, specifically healthy fats like olive oil, nuts, avocado, and fatty fish. Blue zone centenarians eat this way. That is true. So those are the people that live to like 100, that live like off the coast of Greece. And no sugar is allowed while following the Mediterranean diet. That's false. While it is definitely recommended to cut back, you are still allowed to have sweets, but in lesser quantities. And we focus more on like fruit and dark chocolate than like Entenmann's cookies. And then true or false, I should not worry about olive oil calories if I'm aiming for weight loss. That is false. Olive oil has about 120 calories per tablespoon. So we say to aim for no more than 2 tablespoons a day if you're following the Mediterranean diet. But let's do, now that we've talked about like Mediterranean diet, keto, low carb, tracking, all of these eating patterns have one thing in common when it comes to weight loss, and that is a calorie deficit. You still need to eat less than what your body's burning in order to see a change in your weight status. But we do encourage you to take an inventory of your favorite foods, your schedule, your goals, and determine what eating pattern you might be interested in. And remember that perfection is not the goal. You want to think about it how it'll apply in real life. So if your weekdays look like this, just boring salads, I call them sad salads, then your weekends might look like this. Overdoing it, I call them my weekend warriors, right? We don't want to be a weekend warrior. We want to try to eat mindfully. And if you're constantly eating this way, this might be why you're seeing a plateau or weight gain despite your efforts. You're saying, I'm eating salad every day. I'm doing it right. What am I doing wrong? It might be your weekends, or your days might look like this, but your nights look like this. Sometimes we binge eat at night if we're overly restrictive during the day. So I say try to make your weekdays more realistic. So this is Monday night. Looks like a turkey burger with some salad. Um, Tuesday is maybe a rotisserie chicken that we picked up from Stop and Shop with some potatoes and some green beans. Wednesday, we were running around, so we stopped and got a Chipotle salad bowl with chicken and avocado. Thursday night, we had some turkey meatloaf with some cauliflower mash and some string beans. And then Friday night, we had 2 slices of pizza with a nice big Greek salad. So that is better than all or nothing because it's realistic. Like, this sounds good to me. And remember, perfection is the enemy of progress. So Amanda says it's better to be 80% 100% of the time versus 110%, but only 20% of the time. So what we're saying is consistency is better and being mindful. So if you're trying to get started, definitely if you're here live, I think everybody here is still meeting with us or has been meeting with us. But if you're watching this later, if you're interested, book a one-on-one consult to get started with us. We do have a whole webinar on the Mediterranean diet here. That was from last month. So if you're interested, we might be doing another research study as well. And then remember that diets, like clothes, should be tailored to you. This says start where you are, use what you have, do what you can. And remember always, guys, prior to changing your eating plan, just check with your physician if you have any existing medical conditions and if they have any recommendations. So that's my presentation. Does anyone have any questions or comments while we wrap up?
Hi, Katie. It's Linda. Can you hear me?
Hey, yes, I can. How are you?
Good, thank you. That was an excellent presentation. My question is, can you talk about the added sugar? When we look at the labels,
Yes.
trying to understand that. Thank
Yeah.
you.
Yep. I can do that actually right now. Let me pull up a example label and we can look at it together. So let me just share my screen. So if you're somebody who's looking to modify your added sugar intake, what you want to do is always look at the serving size. We can see whatever this food is, it's 2/3 cup. And we want to go down to the total sugars here. And you can see this highlight here is added sugars. So that means that 10 grams of sugar were added to this product, meaning that 2 grams are found naturally, 10 grams were added. And in general, we recommend aiming for single digits when it comes to added sugars. So if this 10 is a little high, anything 9 and under would be considered like better. But a rule of thumb for men, you want your added sugar to be less than 36 grams per day. And for women, it's about 25 grams of added sugar per day as the limit. I think everybody should try for 25. But just as a rule of thumb, look for the added sugar here. And if you look at the ingredients, it'll tell you what form that sugar is in. Is it high fructose corn syrup? Is it cane sugar? And that's how you're going to know the difference between added sugar and total. This doesn't mean that there's 22 grams of sugar in this food. It means there's 12. 2 were found naturally and 10 were added. Does that help?
Yes, thank you so much.
You're welcome.
What about sugar alcohol?
Sugar alcohol is tricky because that basically counts as a half sugar. So like if you see sugar alcohols, it'll say it on the label. And essentially you can take the total sugar. I'm going to find like a Quest bar, a nutrition fact label just to share with you real quick. I'm just going to find a label because it's a lot easier to show you there. Sugar, alcohols, erythritol. So Quest bars are what comes to mind for me, that have like sugar, alcohols, chewing gum, other things. So if we're looking at this label here, this is for like the blueberry nutrition bar, Quest bar. Um, so we're gonna see here it has total sugars is 1. It says it has 0 added sugars, and it says erythritol 4. So this actually named the sugar alcohol. Mannitol, sorbitol, and erythritol are the most common ones. But essentially it counts as 2 grams of added sugar. Even though it says 0, a sugar alcohol, it's like a half a carb. I would still keep these in a low amount because they can cause a lot of bloating and indigestion and they're like processed. But it depends on the person. Giovanna, do you have any, this is our intern, do you have any suggestions on sugar alcohol? I don't know if she's still here. Yeah.
No, I'm here. Sorry. I've heard that it gives people some bloating issues with it. I personally do have sugar alcohols in my protein bar, and I haven't had any issues with it. So I would test it out, try to minimize it because it is something that's modified as well.
Yeah.
Say
So
stick with the real sugar if you can in low quantities and having added or sugar alcohol.
yeah. So in to kind of answer your question a roundabout way, it's something that you don't have to worry about in terms of spiking up your blood sugar, but it's not something you want to have 30 grams of every day. It's a little 10-gram bar. That bar only had 4. It's not a big deal. And they won't spike your sugar or make you gain weight, essentially.
Excellent. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. All right, any other questions today? All right, well, I'm going to send the slides out to everyone that's here. And then if you have any questions, definitely let us know. If you have any upcoming appointments, we can talk about it as well. And stay tuned for next month's webinar, which is going to be in March. I forget the date, on how to meal prep and grocery shop and eat healthy for springtime. So thanks, everyone. I hope you enjoy your day. Stay safe, and I'll see you next time. Bye.